Welcome to commercialdrones.fm, the podcast that explores the commercial drone industry, the people who power it, and the concepts that drive it. I'm your host, Ian Smith. Good day, everyone. I am Ian Smith, host of Commercial Drones FM, and today I'm sitting down with Michael Cohen, CEO of Industrial Skyworks, which is a drone inspection service and software company out of, actually don't quite know. Michael, welcome to the show. Can you tell us where you're from?
Hey, Ian. Real pleasure to be here. Thanks for having me, and I absolutely love the podcast. I'm from Toronto. So the company was created in Toronto, and we've branched out to Houston and Port of Spain, Trinidad.
Very nice. Okay, cool. So you guys are Canada and US. So it sounds like you have some potential regulatory challenges with juggling the two different regulatory bodies there.
Yeah, there's two battles for sure. We're North America. So two sets of manuals, two battles on the regulatory front. Yeah, depending on north or south of the border. You got it.
Nice. Okay. So yeah, let's get started. So what is Industrial Skyworks, and how old is the company? How many employees? That kind of thing. Tell us a little bit about the company.
We're about 15 employees. I think the full-time employees, the all-up team with part-time is about 20 people. About 2/3 of those people are in Toronto, and the rest in the United States. We started about 4 years ago, and we started with a drone meets thermography roof inspection product, and that went to wall inspection and then entirely the building inspection. And we've run that program since the company started. In 2016, we moved into oil and gas for that. Same sort of inspection product. And this put us in a big need around software. Back in 2014, we had this problem of what to do with all this data. Looked around the globe, didn't find anything that could satisfy our customers, so we set about building it ourselves.
Nice. And so you guys do services and software then. So so going back a little bit, actually, what's your background specifically, Michael, and why did you create this company? I mean, how did it kind of come about, and what about your background made it possible?
Yeah, I'm an aviation guy. So after my undergrad, I left school, didn't know what to do, so I became a commercial pilot in the early 90s, and spent about 17, 18 years with that career. I finished my career as a Boeing captain, large airplane.
Nice.
So, about 200 people, 7 crew on board, that sort of thing. And right around 2012, one of our co-founders, Ian Hanna, is a film and television executive.
Another Ian. Okay.
Yeah.
Got some competition.
Ian literally brought a DJI S800, I think I've got that right, into my kitchen in my condo and put it down on the table. And he said, "This is what I'm doing." And I knew immediately it was a game changer. I mean, the thing was kind of scary looking, all kinds of wires over. It was huge on my little condo kitchen. And so we sat down and said, "Hey, listen, let's build a company around this." About a year later, I quit my job. I haven't touched a plane for close to 4 years. It's been a hell of a ride. I love the team, super optimistic about our future, and it's not looking back. I've discovered I'm an entrepreneur.
There you go. All right. So the drone industry is just bringing out the best in everybody that I talk to. So you mentioned the industries briefly earlier. It sounds like you guys, and I was poking around on the website, so you guys work in oil and gas and building inspections. Are there any, does this bleed over to any other industries, or are you guys really focusing in on those two? And because you mentioned you have an office in Houston, that is a great hub of oil and gas, one of the largest in the world. So do you guys branch out as far, into other industries, or is it really focused in on those two?
Yeah, we collapsed the company down into a very, very specific focus. And this was sort of a really important point into our first year. We launched the company, had absolutely no idea what we were doing in other verticals, but I think we were just following. So the first initial website said, well, look, we do building inspections, we do solar inspections, we do energy, oil and gas. I think we said mining as well. And then sort of the end of our first calendar year, we looked at revenue in all of those verticals and went, okay, wait a second. We're making a living on building inspections. We're learning it. We're leaders in it. And when we started to pick apart the business, we go, wait a second, buying in solar is way different than buying in energy. The solutions are different. We don't know anything about these things. So let's just focus on building inspections and get right down to the heart of the problem. And that's been a great business for us. And we've got great relationships with architects and engineers, and we're really understanding how to image buildings. Then oil and gas came over to us. A couple of people, big firms said, hey, listen, we like what you're doing there. Are you interested in doing the same sort of thing around refinery? So upstream, midstream sort of stuff. And of course, we're chiefly tasked with growing a business. So we moved it over. We like that market. It's very, very big. And I think you'd agree in that the adoption there for robotics, digitizing asset management, that sort of stuff, seems to be moving quickly, maybe even more quickly than other industries.
For oil and gas?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, cool. So I totally agree with you guys. I mean, obviously, you made a sound business decision. You looked at the books, you identified the industries where you had the most traction, and then you pivoted a little and then decided to focus on those, which makes a ton of sense. So again, looking through, we talked a little bit about the services just briefly. You guys do software, you create software. So you have something called Blueview. Can you tell us about Blueview software? Is it cloud-based? Is it like software as a service? Like what's the deal here with Blueview, and how would it help an end user?
Yeah, well, Blueview came around just out of a commercial need internally. And we call this the just drone problem. I'll back up to about 2014. We're doing a building inspection at a private school, sort of turn-of-the-century old buildings, architect and engineer on the job, and they're looking at condition of roof tiles, these sort of shingles, old shingles. And I said, hey, listen, we've got this great technology, drones, we're going to come in, we're going to do it on the weekend, you're going to save a whole bunch of time, a whole bunch of money, no need for lift trucks and ladders and all that sort of thing. And we did precisely that. And on the Monday morning, we transferred over to the architect and the engineer on the job, about 4,000 photos of the building. And they went suicidal looking through these things for like 5 days. Their margins on their job just completely tanked, and they absolutely hated us. Okay, great hardware, but this deliverable is like, everyone understands that. Even keeping your music library. Can you imagine looking 1 foot at a roof through thousands of photos? So the value prop of drones just crashed for us. So we went looking for a software product to solve this. We understood it. In our shop, we frame it as just drone, the just drone problem. The hardware gets you so far for a value proposition, but if you don't have a follow-on solution to the data, then the entire thing collapses, particularly in dense inspections like buildings. And so having not found it anywhere around the globe, we said, hey, okay, this is a great opportunity. Let's dig in. Let's build out a software team. Let's build out PhDs that understand computer vision, machine learning, and let's get to something really high value. So what we did in 2016 went from a minimum viable product on a desktop, and we started building that into each job that we were doing for building inspections or for oil and gas. Our customers liking it? What's the feedback? So sort of went through 12 months of beta. And were they willing to pay for it? That's been successful, and that's just wrapping up now in February. So as of March, Industrial Skyworks now, in addition to building inspections as a service and oil and gas as a service, we're now spinning off software as a service standalone on Blueview. Initials desktop and cloud version. We're aiming for a summer launch on a cloud version.
Very cool. I really like that story, actually. That's a very good story on the, okay, hey, we just delivered 4,000 images. Wipe our hands clean. Here you go, Mr.
It's
Customer.
your job. Cut us a check. Thanks a lot.
There you go. And then they're like, what the heck do we do? So that underscores then the kind of reasoning why you guys are, your website, again, I just wrote down a quote here. It says to embrace the power of AI to make smarter, faster decisions about a customer's assets. So that kind of underscores, like, maybe you can explain then the kind of what is your research and your feature set in computer vision, machine learning, and all these different buzzwords. What does that actually translate to for a customer then? Maybe that same customer who has those 4,000 images, what is your software now going to do to help them work with that?
Well, So great website language. I'm immediately thinking about the guy that wrote that. Zimbo, that's great language.
Good stuff.
He's
good
our
copy.
A's. Good copy. Look, our thesis is really simple. Why would you send someone to go do something very difficult, costly, or dangerous when a 5-pound piece of robotic plastic can go do that? I mean, that just makes great sense. Then you've got this just drone problem. Well, okay, thanks a lot for the 4,000 photos. And by the way, jobs, we've had over 5, 6, 10,000 photos. I mean, the data is absolutely huge on what we call dense inspection. So forward looking in our shop, we go, okay, well, wait a second. The hardware, that's a no-brainer. That's just obvious. Now we've got software. So can we empower an inspector rather than hanging off the side of a building or a flare stack, climbing up something to go look at it? Can we put them in the luxury of their downtown office, reviewing information from a drone? So sure, and I think most of the industry gets that today. And we think about a world where we just start automating the detection of those problems. Mm-hmm. So we think a lot about getting the shot and achieving the mission. So if you're looking at something in like energy leaking at a building, if you're looking for a crack or corrosion, these are really buzzwords for the drone industry. Can you live in a world where you're doing that in the luxury or downtown, clicking a button that says, okay, show me all the corrosion, and then having the software be able to do that? The value prop is obvious to our partners, which happen to be our clients, architects, engineers, inspectors, those sorts of things. If you can take the human out of the loop and automate the process of these detections, then you can increase your margins on your job.
Yeah.
And you can get efficiencies that literally return greater dollars into one's pocket around inspection work.
The efficiencies that were promised way back in drone lore from the early 2010 era. So that's definitely, I mean, the right approach. I totally agree. You can't just take a bunch of images and then deliver it. I mean, it has to actually tell you something. It has to give you the next step on what do you do? Like, tell me how to fix this. Don't just give me a bunch of data that I can get. And so this episode of Commercial Drones FM is brought to you by FLIR. Pretty much everyone in the commercial drone world knows about FLIR's thermal imaging technologies and may even have a basic understanding of how their sensors work. At Commercial Drones FM, we think this technology is deserving of the spotlight to reveal some of the incredible things thermal imaging drones can accomplish. Drones equipped with thermal imagers offer a way to see the world from a different perspective, which can help identify infrastructure problems, locate missing people, and increase safety and efficiency across a variety of industries. The value of thermal imaging for commercial drone operations is undeniable. So I want to use this podcast as a platform to dive deep into the world of heat and seek out the best practices and the unique use cases that make thermal imaging sensors the most drone-ready payload for commercial drone applications right next to RGB cameras. So join us over the coming months as we invite FLIR and their customers into our studio to discuss the technical and practical uses of their groundbreaking efforts in aerial thermal imagery. This episode of Commercial Drones FM is brought to you by Deveron UAS. Deveron UAS offers enterprise drone services for farmland across North America. I recently spoke with Bonduelle, one of Deveron's largest customers.
So my name is Jennifer Thompson. I work for Bonduelle America's Long Life. We're a vegetable processor. Bonduelle is a very large company with 54 plants in the world. Here in North America, we have 11 plants doing frozen and canned vegetables.
So naturally, I wanted to know, how is Deveron helping one of the largest vegetable processors in the world by using drone technology?
So we use Deveron to service and support our precision agricultural needs. For us, it's not easy to have our own or fly our own drones to gather crop data. So Deveron is ready and available to work for us when needed. We fly thousands of acres, and managing those acres, it just works very easily with them in our fast-paced growing season. They're not just providing data, they're helping to solve issues and find solutions.
Well, that's very important work, but what's your favorite crop to eat?
My favorite crop to eat is sweet corn. I will eat sweet corn 365 days of the year.
I'm not sure if I've ever eaten sweet corn yet that was monitored by drone. To learn more, visit deveronuas.com/dronesfm and see for yourself how Deveron is leading collaboration in agriculture with drones. That's deveronuas.com/dronesfm. Okay, back to the show. Switching a little bit, like whenever these services happen, so going back to the two kind of prongs, I guess, of your business, the drone services and the software, what is typically the deciding factor on if Industrial Skyworks performs the drone service and then delivers the final result, or if the customer themselves actually like has the drone, uses the drone themselves, and then is just kind of like going to upload that data to your software? Like, what's the kind of like, what's the deciding factor between either of those scenarios? Customer doing it themselves, or you guys providing that bespoke service?
In my view, there's really two sort of things. It's a success of using us the first time seems to follow on to future work. So did it work the first time? Did Industrial Skyworks do that? So we see a lot of follow-on work that way. But perhaps even more importantly, a lot of the engagement with customers at this stage in our industry, in our business, seems to be around minimizing risk, right? The value prop, we like to think of it as the customer's reason to stop doing what they're doing and do it our way or a new way of doing it. And that's largely around risk. You know, you've got someone in the shop that says, drones are great, we're going to do this over scaffolding, and he's taking a chance with his organization, new to the technology, and the first question that they're going to ask themselves is, how do I achieve the greatest outcome here? If they've got people on site that have done a fair bit of flying, okay, you got low risk, they know what they're doing. So in those cases, we say, okay, that's brilliant. Organization's doing this. Do you need someone on site to supervise or consult? So we send people, drone guys or data guys stand around saying, hey, listen, let's do some more flying around this sort of, base of the structure or top of the structure, that sort of thing. But I'll finish on this. It seems to be, if they've got competency and they've got experience and they can minimize the risk on the flying, go right ahead, fill your boots.
You mentioned risk, and I think that's a big, it's actually cannot be emphasized enough, especially with the clients you're dealing with, oil and gas companies. If there's an incident that happens and one of these folks is kind of operating a drone themselves, and this actually comes from this is taking a little bit of inspiration from Patrick Egan here. I've heard him talk about this, but it's a great point. ExxonMobil, for example, just hypothetically, has someone flying around, ExxonMobil employee with a drone. They're doing an asset inspection. All of a sudden, rogue drone goes haywire, accidentally, has a malfunction, hits car that's on highway, car crashes, somebody gets hurt or worse. Exxon stock price goes down. So there's a lot of risk here with these companies. So I think you nailed it there, and you guys have a good approach for that. So shifting from the actual services and software, let's talk about a little bit about the hardware. I think on your website I might have seen an Arion Labs Scout or something. So one of those quadcopters that is a Canadian company, so I'm not very surprised there. But yeah, what kind of hardware do you or your clients choose to use, and what kind of sensors do you usually deploy on these drones to do this data capture? Yeah,
you can tell our age in the industry if it's an Arion Scout, because I'm not sure they've got that product anymore. Great Canadian company. We're out of Toronto. The guys are an hour west of the city, so we started with them in 2012, 2013 to look at the Scout. That's sort of an interesting approach, the way we went at hardware when we made initial decisions in 2013. We love the Arion product for a couple of reasons. One, the regulators like them. We were the very first U.S. and very first Canadian nighttime operator, so we needed to come on with our application with a really solid product, and the Arions definitely got that. And there was some other things in terms of, capabilities, flight capabilities. Tablet flown for us in 2014 was incredibly, if we were going to write to the FAA and say, listen, we're going to fly over buildings at night, to take the hands and feet, the stick and rudder out of that, and the visual perceptions was absolutely huge. And at that time, our strategy was go right to the top of the market price point, for perception, for branding. And we've tried to keep that. So we very much like the Ariane product. We'll continue to use it. Great team, great success story. The Intel is very, very popular with pilots.
Like the Falcon 8.
The Falcon, they just absolutely love it. If you're going to be downtown in urban areas, we've got this human factor around, which I've discovered in running the business. That reminds me of my airline days. Guys like to fly good equipment. And if it's not reliable, good equipment, top line, you won't get guys doing it. And by guys, I mean pilots. I mean people.
Yeah.
So the Falcon, they absolutely love. I've done product advisory board stuff with Flyability. We love their indoor Helios.
That's the one with the kind of the cage around it.
Beach ball cage, yeah. If you've seen the first marketing shot I think they did was inside a train or a subway with the guys flying around in like 2015. I mean, everyone was talking about drones going berserk, and these guys are flying one in a subway car. I mean, just
indoors.
Brilliant, brilliant product. I'll end on this, Ian. We've not touched some of the Chinese stuff, but we're understanding guys in our shop just love them. They have them personally. They say, listen, for the price point, the capability is exactly there. And I think we'll start looking at that in the future. I understand the things like the M200 are really, really capable devices. And a lot of our clients that are doing the field acquisition are flying precisely those sorts of tools.
Yeah. And you guys also will potentially have clients that have, potential security concerns. I mean, I've talked about it on the podcast before with DJI. I mean, we had Michael Perry, the director of DJI North America, come on and talk about some of the stuff in the news lately. And so that's awesome. Sounds good. I mean, checked all the boxes there. And I appreciate as an aviator, manned aviation myself. The human factors that you mentioned. I mean, you can't ignore those. And it's interesting how it comes up in business, but also in aviation as well. So can you tell us any kind of just kind of wrapping this up, maybe any specific missions that you guys have done for a client? You don't have to name the client or anything, or a client has done that resulted, that used the Industrial Skyworks system and kind of resulted in a positive return on investment.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, we're seeing this in our business all the time. I'll give you just one example. I like buildings. We've got guys in our shop that talk oil and gas all the time, and they're going to be upset at me for talking to you about buildings. But I started with buildings. I'm the sort of chief.
Building. We're in a building right now.
I'm the chief evangelist for buildings around our stuff. There was this great convocation hall at an old university, copper dome, really complex, beautiful building, and it requires a mandatory inspection. And this is for all the drone guys out there, I think, like this story. The safety regulations in the region changed in the jurisdiction. So the way engineers were tying off to access this dome and inspect it wasn't possible anymore. So, you go the next best thing, right? Which was a lift truck. You rent a truck, you get in there. Well, the rise and the run due to the neighboring buildings and a fountain and a statue around this thing couldn't get engineers anywhere closer than about 20 feet away from this. So the concept came on, well, let's drone this. Great tool to do it. So typical value prop. You get in there, you do it very, very quick, 15 minutes to cover this. That then goes into a three-dimensional model, into Blue View, and you get to a report. Time savings is 90% faster. There's 50% less costs involved. And this just rippled for us into, wow, I mean, this actually works, right? Into doing the entire university's buildings.
Oh, nice. They were so happy with that result.
That's right. Just a great use case of, okay, I know there's a lot of, we've gone through a lot of jargon. We're really pumped up about hardware a couple of years ago. Software seems to be a bit of a buzz. We went through it's all about the data sort of stuff. But what wakes me up every morning is the fact that, when you cut through all of that, you can actually, for our industry, get on site and show a real savings and give someone real data at their desktop to be able to do their job. And thanks to the drone guys, shout out for them, thanks to the sensor guys, because the cameras, without good cameras on it, you just couldn't do that. I mean, we're in a resolution game for sure. So we're really bullish on that sort of impact around this. And if I'll end on this, Ian, I like buildings a lot. As I said, I'm the chief evangelist. They leak a lot of energy. They're very expensive assets. The people inside, we want to keep them safe and comfortable and those sorts of things. And we happen to be dropping a tremendous amount of stuff off of buildings. Every 3 weeks, somewhere in North America, we drop bricks or a pane of glass or something down on buildings. And so we say, well, listen, it's now very, very easy to go and catch these problems early.
Definitely. So, how many employees are you guys again?
Yeah, about 15 full-time, and then we've got some additional team members.
So I really appreciate the kind of candor that you bring to this conversation and talking about these lessons learned, because I think it brings a lot of perspective in. And from, some previous guests, I haven't gotten that kind of viewpoint. So it's like this perspective from a growing drone company, the ways that you guys have kind of optimized and fine-tuned everything and found your niche and figured it out. So really big props from me on that. So I'm going to go ahead and say thank you so much, Michael, for joining us to the podcast. You can go ahead and follow Industrial Skyworks on Twitter at IND_Skyworks. So like IND_Skyworks, Industrial Skyworks, you get it. And then Facebook.com/Industrial Skyworks. You can follow the podcast on Twitter while you're at it, at Drones Podcast, on Facebook.com/Drones Podcast with an S. And then you can decide to become a Patreon supporter of the podcast for $1 a month and get you some rewards there. But before we go ahead and cut off the mics, I got one last question for you, Michael.
Fire.
What does the future hold for Industrial Skyworks and the drone industry in your mind?
Well, for us, it's global domination. We're going to roll Blueview out around the globe and change building and oil and gas inspections. I'll tell you, on the drone industry side of things, I think there's so many companies doing really, really great work. I was on a Wall Street Journal interview this morning, and I got the same question. I said, listen, we are today on the truck. We've got a drone in a box ready to go to fly autonomously. If we get the regulations, the machine learning guys and the software guys are going to be able to automate a lot of the detection from the data that the drone in the box is going to get, and we will, as an industry, no doubt change the way that we're maintaining a lot of assets and the information that we're getting. And just look at the work that some of the companies did around emergency relief with our recent hurricane season. Like, if you want to point to something, fantastic. So I'm bullish on the software. I'm hugely bullish on the hardware, and the impact that we can make around making things safer and better, I think, is fantastic.
And with that, we'll go ahead and end the show. So everybody, thank you so much for listening. Thanks again, Michael Cohen, CEO of Industrial Skyworks. We are now going to cut off the mics. Thanks, everyone. Cheers.